Hey everybody, I'm Dax, you're you, and there are hundreds of millions of other yous and me's, so to speak, in America, almost 8 billion around the world. So how do we all live around each other and not get up in each other's business in an improper way, violating rights? So what is a right? I mean, how do we do that? How do we manage all that? What is government supposed to do about all of that? What's government's role in that to make sure that we are not violating each other's rights? Well, we've got to understand what rights are. And unfortunately, not even the great founding fathers of America really understood it. They kind of got it right almost when they said, we have a right to our life and our liberty and our property and our happiness. That pretty much nails it, but they didn't understand where they came from. They had the short phrase in the Declaration, that they were endowed by a creator, but that's vague. And, then there's the argument, is there a creator? And then can that creator take those rights away if he or she or it endowed those rights? So it didn't go far enough. We have to actually understand what a right is. Why do we have rights? And this can be taught pretty early on to kids, and they can get it. But for adults who haven't grown up with the understanding of what a right is, it ends up creating a mess like we have in America and around the world right now. We've got politicians, people in Hollywood, environmentalists, and socialists, communists, fascists, supremacists. It's crazy for the average American who doesn't understand what rights are, and average Americans don't. Most people don't know what a right is. And we have to understand those if we're ever going to be free. So I was mentioning kids. So just a quick anecdote. My daughter is 16 now, and I started teaching her rights, didn't call them that, when she was 3 or 4 years old. I said, baby, your stuff is your stuff, my stuff is my stuff. I can't mess with your stuff, and you are you, and I'm me. Your body is your body, my body is my body. I can't tell you what to do with your body. You can't tell me what to do with my body. When she was young, it was within safety limits, but that was it. So she wanted to climb on stuff. I don't have a problem with that, whatever. And I told her, your room is your room. You could do with it as you please. And I'd already made up my mind. If she wanted to draw on the walls or whatever, it could be painted over pretty easily. So, whatever. But I couldn't go in her room unless she gave me permission. Hey, baby, can I come in? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Driving home very clearly that her body, her property, her space, her actions were hers, not mine. Now that meant she didn't have to share with me, and I didn't have to share with her. So this works out great. And I also made it very clear, I can't take your stuff away from you. She's damaging a toy. I might say, well, it's my money. I don't have to replace that toy if it gets torn up. And I would say that. So, I might not replace that. I might not get you a new one. I'm just saying, it's my money, And so obviously doing this over and over, she gets it. She gets, one phrase we used to have is, I'm in charge of my body, you're in charge of your body. She would say that to me, and I would say that to her in a nice way, obviously. And then she started getting friends when she was 4, 5, and 6, and I overheard her telling her friends, hey, I'm in charge of my body, I'm me and you're you. And, she was directing her kids, her friends, basically teaching her friends about rights. So obviously later on we started talking actually more philosophically about rights. What exactly are there? Why do we Why do we have them? And so it's a visceral understanding with young children if you start teaching them right off and teaching them right from wrong. Right from wrong meaning, what's a good action for yourself? What's a good action when somebody else is involved? So obviously, right now, she's 16. She understands rights very well. I would say nearly perfectly. maybe not with as deep of an understanding as I do, because she just doesn't put her mind to it. She knows, quite well. She lives it. She never messes with me or anybody else, ever. And frankly, hasn't her entire life, because she was taught from the beginning. Just one more quick anecdote on that. That had to do with noise in the house as well. She's making a bunch of noise. I say, hey, would you mind, keeping that down a little bit? Well, if she didn't keep it down, well, then I could say, well, you know what? I'm not really in the mood to cook you any dinner tonight. This is a quid pro quo here, something for something. And that only happened maybe once or twice, and then it just never happened again. It's like, I'm not going to get up in your space. I'm not going to take your stuff away. I can. It's your stuff. But I can, withdraw my own actions, my own stuff. So even she liked to stay up 5, 6, 7 years old. She liked to stay up a little bit later than me because I went to work. Sound on the TV set. She liked to watch her cartoons. So we had a discussion when she was actually 4 of what sound level it could be at while I was still asleep. So we experimented. Found out that the sound level was 12 on the remote control on the TV set. So she never let it go above 12 when I was going to sleep. So it's real simple. I mean, really. And the whole idea, people have this kind of basic understanding, I think, that, don't mess with me. I love this motto in Texas, don't mess with Texas. Yeah, I'm actually from Texas. So, don't mess with Texas. Don't mess with me. Just, live your life. But that's not enough. Because even virtually every Texan I know is okay with the government getting up in their business. The government having high taxes, the government operating roads, which it's not supposed to be doing, the government stopping you for going 52 and a 40. It's not supposed to do that. You're not being dangerous. That's the only time police should get involved. So, the government handing out your money, even in Texas, to other people because they're impoverished or unhealthy or whatever. And people are like, well, all right, maybe the government's supposed to, take care of the downtrodden. No, it's not. It's not. The government has one job, to protect our rights. That's it. And that involves making sure that people don't take physical coercive action against other people or fraudulent action against other people and then prosecuting them in objective courts of law. That's it. They're not supposed to own parks, or I should say take over land in America and call them parks. They're not supposed to do that. They're not supposed to be in charge of parks. That land needs to be sold off, all of it. And I know a lot of people, virtually everybody I know, it's like, oh, it's a nice little city park. No, cities aren't supposed to have parks. Well, what happens if, there's no city parks or, city sidewalks? Private people will come in and create their own parks if they want to do that. You can do that. I can do that. Heck, if I get enough money, I might just do that. I've been thinking about it about a mile from where I live. There's a nice little area over there where there'd be a good park. Buy out the little broken down business, create a little park. I'd like to go over there. So me and a bunch of people could get together and be like, hey, let's create a park. That will in a free society, that's what will happen. But we have to first understand what the limitations are on our actions. Almost 8 billion people on Earth, 340 million or so in America. So what is a right? And interestingly, it's such a difficult thing to wrap one's head around that it was actually not discovered, like a scientific proof discovered, until the late 1950s by a woman, writer, philosopher named Ayn Rand. And Ayn Rand said, a right is a moral principle defining and sanctioning a person's freedom of action in a social context. A right is a moral principle defining and sanctioning a person's action in a moral context. That's kind of an abstract way to put it. But it's a moral principle. What should a person be able to do? What kind of action should they be able to do? It's a moral principle. And that principle sanctions our action. It makes it clear in our minds what our actions can be or can't be against other people in a society. If you're on an island, you don't need rights. There are no rights on an island because you're by yourself. The animals don't understand rights. Rights only begin when another person joins you on an island. And then now, both of you have rights. So, that right, as Ayn Rand pointed out, is the only fundamental right. You have a right to your actions in a social context, which means in your actions, what predicates your actions are your life, your body, your property, your money. Those are fundamentals in a society. You have a right to your life, body, property, and money so that you can take action with those things. Action that is limited by other people's rights to their body, property, money, life. So that's where the curtain is drawn. You have to, if you want to use them, use their property, use their money, you have to ask. You have to get their permission because they have a right. And government's only job is to protect all that, to make sure that goes down right, correctly. That's the way it is. That's the way it's supposed to be. So, Ayn Rand goes on further to explain why that's the case. And it's brilliant. She goes on to say that life is a self-sustaining action. Self-sustaining and self-generated. The right to life means the right to engage in self-sustaining and self-generated action. The only way you can live is by being in charge of you and your stuff. That's the only way you can live. And the only way you can be happy is the same way. And those are two fundamentals: to live and to be happy, to thrive. A human being with a rational consciousness has a right to those things. And that rational consciousness is what separates us, obviously, from the lower animals. Lower animals cannot testify in court. They don't have any idea where the curtain is on action. They eat each other. They go after each other, or they, whatever. They may graze, but they have no idea of who they are. There's no self-consciousness there. So it's the rational mind that is the fountainhead for rights, as Ayn Rand points out. The rational mind understands what a right is and therefore can abide by what a right is. That is a supremely cogent way to put it. We have rights because we can know what a right is. We can abide by them. We're supposed to abide by them. If we don't abide by them, then we have government to make sure that we get punished. That's the only thing it's supposed to do. It's not supposed to be out there, taking away land for parks and diverting attention from what it's actually supposed to do. It's not supposed to be out there running roads and highways. That's up to private businesses to do that. And they could do it much better, right? It's not up to them to deliver our mail. The government that's supposed to be only in charge of protecting our rights is delivering mail. The government has taken over the money supply, stealing really hundreds of millions of dollars from us through inflation, printing money, counterfeiting cash, taking over the money supply. This is a gross violation of our rights to run our own businesses or run our own banks for there to be competing money supplies. Why not? I mean, businesses have to compete for our loyalty Amazon has my loyalty. They've got all my private information. I invest in them. If Amazon decided to start a bank, like Facebook is sort of talking about with a monetary issue right now, then I think I would probably be a member of that bank because I trust Amazon so much. If they decided they wanted to print their own cash for me to use and for others to go, you know what, I trust Amazon, well, then that's the way it's supposed to work. Then we all use Amazon cash. Maybe they call it the Bezos. Whatever. But the government isn't supposed to be in charge of that. So you've got people now, I call them people, they're rats, crooks, politicians. You got politicians now. Bernie Sanders. Bernie wants socialism in America. Socialism is the takeover of government. It's the takeover of our private lives. It's the takeover of business. All socialist governments in history have ended in abject failure. China eventually realized that it had to at least incorporate some freedom and some capitalism. That's the only way it could survive. But all socialism ends in communism or dictatorship or both, but it's almost the same thing anyway. I mean, look at Venezuela right now. But socialism is a gross violation of human rights. We have a right to our own body, property, money, life, etc. Socialism says, no, you can't do that. Bernie Sanders gets up there with his limpy, long Einstein hair or whatever you want to call it and says, you know, no, you can't. No, I'm going to take over your life and you don't have rights. AOC, the airhead, says she wants to take away Jeff Bezos' billions, Oprah Winfrey's billions, Bill Gates' billions. She doesn't like billionaires. When in fact, billionaires have created so much value for us. Oprah, Bezos, Gates have done so many things that we've willingly given them cash for because we have a right to do that and they have a right to make their money. And good for them. The true robber barons in history, these capitalists have been called robber barons for 150 years by the socialists, the haters, those who don't understand rights. But in fact, the true robber barons are always politicians. They wait, and they know how long to wait for a country to get affluent, for there to be a lot of rich people, for there to be a growing middle class, and then they swoop in and they steal, and they threaten, and they kill. And this is starting to happen now in America. It's already happening in other places around the world that used to be a lot freer. England, France, Germany. It's just getting pathetic. They're taking away guns. They have in Australia. Almost all of Europe, I think all of Europe. Taking away guns. You have a right to gun ownership. It's not a primary. The primary is you have a right to your life, but you have a right to your property and your money. And guns are property. And you certainly have a right to determine your own safety. So whether it's guns or knives or mace or whatever it is, that's your determination. That cannot even be discussed. Is it a Second Amendment issue? Yeah. But fundamentally, it's a rights issue. We have a right to determine our own safety accord. So, getting back to rights, we have to understand, you have to understand, I have to understand, almost 8 billion people need to understand that a right is a moral principle based on the fact that we are rational animals and have to be free with our own actions. And the government cannot get involved in that. And we have to stop it. We have to put an end to it and claim our freedom and run these crooks out of office and put them in prison if necessary and put people in place who know what a right is. And frankly, we need a new constitution that states this very clearly. That's another issue for another video. But in the meantime, goodwill to you, and I'll talk to you again soon. Take care.